Welcome to the Science of Fiction HFY Galaxy Tales. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new story from HFY Galaxy Tales. Where humanity always finds a way. The Auction of Fear, the Underground. Auction on Raylox 9 was dark, cold, and filled with the stench of oil and fear. Syrah, a young alien girl with silver skin and glowing blue eyes, sat quietly inside a metal cage. Her wrists were locked in magnetic cuffs that hummed softly with every movement she made. Around her, many other cages held different beings, some crying, some angry, some completely silent. Syrah had heard stories from other slaves, stories about what happened when a human bought someone. They said humans loved pain. They said humans did experiments. They said old human males were the worst. A booming voice echoed through the chamber as the auctioneer shouted. Next item, Lot 47. Rare hybrid species, excellent condition. Syrah stood as ordered, her eyes low, her heart beating fast like a wild animal trapped in a storm. The crowd of bidders growled and hissed, their voices like monsters from a nightmare. 2,000 credits, someone yelled. A green-skinned warrior with sharp tusks. 3,000, a robot dealer added. Its voice sharp and metallic. Syrah felt her knees weaken, her mind already accepting that she would be taken by one of them. Then silence fell as a new voice entered the room, not a voice, but a quiet presence. A middle-aged human stepped forward from the shadows. Dressed in an old military jacket and simple boots, he looked around once, then lifted his wrist device and showed a number. 10,000 credits. Everyone froze, even the auctioneer stuttered. 10,000. The other bidders backed away, some annoyed, some confused. Syrah's breath caught in her throat as the human walked toward her cage without speaking a single word. The guards opened her cage and pushed her toward the man. Syrah stared at the floor, expecting chains, pain, or orders shouted at her, but the human didn't grab her. Didn't yell, didn't smile, either. He just turned and walked away. She followed because the guards told her to. Still unsure what was happening, once they reached a small, rusty spaceship parked outside. She was pushed gently inside. The door closed behind her, and the ship lifted off with a soft hum. Inside the ship, it was quiet and warm. She sat on the metal bench, still cuffed, still afraid. The human returned after setting the autopilot and sat across from her. He placed a bottle of clean water and a wrapped protein bar in front of her. You can eat if you want, he said softly, his voice calm. Syrah didn't move, still staring at him like he was a trap waiting to snap. My name is Eric Morgan, the man said, leaning back in his seat. I'm not going to hurt you, he added, watching her carefully. Syrah said nothing, her voice frozen with fear and confusion. He noticed her silence and nodded slowly, then stood up and walked away to the cockpit. When he returned, he was holding a device that unlocked her cuffs. The cuffs clicked open, and Syrah immediately pulled her hands to her chest, trembling. You're not a slave anymore, Eric said, then left the room again. She looked down at her hands, at the red marks left by the cuffs. Could it be true? Could a human actually mean no harm? That night, she didn't sleep. She sat by the corner of the room, watching every move he made. He didn't lock the doors, didn't tie her down, didn't even check on her. He just slept in the pilot chair with his jacket as a blanket. In the morning, Eric made something warm in the ship's kitchen and placed it in front of her. You must be hungry, he said with a small smile. Syrah didn't know how to react, but her stomach growled louder than her fear. She slowly picked up the food and took her first real bite in days. Eric sat down again, not too close, and started explaining. I don't believe in what they're doing out there, buying and selling lives. I used to be part of the Earth military. Special Rescue Division, he continued. I lost my daughter years ago, and I couldn't save her. His voice cracked a little. Now, I try to save whoever I can. Whenever I can. Syrah stared at him. This strange human with pain in his eyes, but kindness in his actions. He wasn't what the others had warned her about. He was something different, but trust wasn't easy. Not after all she had been through. Still, something inside her had changed. The fear wasn't as loud as before. She whispered for the first time. Why me? Eric looked at her gently and replied. Because no one else would. The silence between them wasn't empty anymore. It was heavy with meaning, but their peace was not going to last long. Unknown to them, a slaver ship had already detected their escape and marked their ship with a bounty. The girl who once believed humans were monsters now sat in the ship of one who refused to be one, and the journey of freedom had only just begun. The hidden past of the human rescuer. Sarah sat alone in the small passenger room of the ship, the lights dim, the walls humming softly with engine power. She stared at the metal floor, her arms around her knees, her mind still filled with fear and confusion. The human had freed her, fed her, spoken kindly, but she couldn't understand why. Nobody had ever done something kind for her without asking something worse in return. She had seen other slaves sold and destroyed, and she had seen humans do terrible things. Now, this middle-aged man named Eric was doing the opposite, and it scared her in a new way. When the ship slowed down and landed on a small moon base, Sarah tensed up. She thought he had tricked her. Maybe sold her again, maybe delivered her to someone worse. Eric returned wearing a light jacket and smiled gently. "We're safe here, just refueling." He handed her a small translator chip, showing her how to put it behind her ear. "It'll help you understand me better," he said before walking away to speak with the station's mechanic. Sarah watched through the small window, her fingers shaking, her thoughts racing, but Eric didn't speak about her, didn't hand her over, didn't take money. He talked only about the ship fuel levels, food supplies, system updates. When they left the station, Sarah didn't say anything, but inside, a wall in her heart cracked, just a little. Back on the ship, she followed him to the cockpit and asked her first real question. "Why did you buy me?" she said, her voice dry and low. Eric looked at her for a moment, as if remembering something painful, then nodded slowly. "I used to be a soldier," he said, eyes focused on the stars outside the ship. "I worked for the Earth United Forces, rescue and defense. We fought in a lot of places, protected colonies, stopped slavers when we could. But one day, my daughter's ship was attacked by pirates. They took her, just like you were taken." His voice grew heavy. "I tried everything, called in every favor, chased every lead. But I never found her," he whispered, hands tightening on the pilot controls. "She would have been your age now," he added, finally turning to look at Sarah. "I couldn't save her, but maybe I can save someone else." Sarah felt something inside her shift, a strange mix of sorrow and something softer. "I'm not your daughter," she said quietly. "I know," Eric replied. "But you didn't deserve to be in that cage." From that day, Sarah began to watch him more closely. He never locked his room, never gave orders, never treated her like less. He taught her how to use the food machine, how to read the control screen, how to find safe systems. She even learned to pilot the ship when he had headaches from old war wounds. He showed her old maps, shared stories of planets and battles, but always skipped the parts with blood. Eric only told the stories where people survived, where someone was saved. One night, she woke to strange noises in the engine room. Creeping toward it, she found Eric lying on the floor, his shirt stained with blood from reopened scars. Without thinking, she ran to help him, grabbing a med kit and patching the wounds with shaking hands. He didn't scream or fight, he just looked at her and said, "Thank you. I thought humans didn't feel pain," she whispered, wiping the sweat from his forehead. "We do," he replied. "We just hide it when we have to." After that, Sarah stopped calling him human and started calling him Eric. She began sleeping without fear, even smiling once when he showed her how to make warm drinks. He gave her a small communicator and said, "You can leave anytime, I won't stop you." She stared at it, then placed it on the table and said, "I don't want to go." "Not yet." Eric nodded, not pressing her, not asking why, but both of them knew something was changing. Then, everything shifted again, when a red alert flashed on the main screen. Eric rushed to the controls, scanning the signal, his jaw tight. "A bounty ship," he muttered. "They've tracked us from the auction. They marked you as property and me as a thief," he said. Sarah stood frozen, heart pounding, old fears rushing back into her chest. "What do we do now?" she asked, her voice barely audible. Eric didn't hesitate. "We run. Fast." But Sarah had learned more than just ship controls. She had learned something deeper. "I can jam their tracking signal," she said. Running to the terminal and plugging in her stolen data chip, her fingers moved quickly, bypassing codes and throwing fake echoes across space. The ship shook as the enemy got closer, but the jamming signal worked, buying them precious minutes. Eric launched a warp jump just as plasma beams missed their tail by inches. When the stars finally slowed and they entered safe space, both of them sat in silence. Eric gave a weak laugh. "You did great," Sarah replied. "You taught me." But their escape had cost them. Eric's ship had taken damage, and the bounty was now larger than ever. Still, for the first time in a long time, Sarah felt like she belonged somewhere, not because someone owned her but because someone believed in her. The girl who once feared the human now stood beside him, ready to fight, ready to learn, ready to trust. Escape, loyalty, and a new beginning. The ship floated quietly through deep space. Drifting between two dead zones, Eric sat in the captain's chair with a bandage around his ribs. Sweat on his face, and pain in his eyes. Sierra stood at the control panel, her hands shaking slightly but her mind focused. The bounty ship was still out there, scanning nearby systems, looking for them like a predator hunting prey. "We need to get to a safe zone," Eric said, coughing. "You're hurt," Sierra replied. "You can't fly in this condition." Eric tried to stand, but collapsed back into the chair with a grunt. Sierra rushed to his side, checking his pulse and wounds. The med gel was running low, and the power core was damaged during their last jump. They didn't have enough fuel to outrun the next attack. Eric looked up at her, eyes heavy with pain but still calm. "I'll send you in the escape pod. Get you to safety," he said. Sierra shook her head, firm and fearless. "No," she said. "You saved me. I won't leave you behind." Eric smiled weakly. "You don't owe me anything." "I'm not doing this because I owe you," she answered. "I'm doing it because I want to." She ran to the backup systems, bypassed the broken circuits, and powered the stealth module. Then she opened her stolen alien interface and began searching for weaknesses in the bounty ship's code. Back at the auction, she had secretly downloaded encrypted files from the slave trader's control room. Now those files gave her what she needed, a hidden backdoor into the bounty hunter's targeting systems. She hacked their scanner, planted a fake ID signature on a nearby asteroid, and activated a timed flare as the enemy ship locked onto the decoy and moved to intercept it. Sarah activated the jump drive. The stars blurred once more, and they vanished into hyperspace. Eric groaned from the pain, but he smiled proudly as he watched her work. "You're not the same girl I met in that cage," he said, voice soft. Sierra looked at him, her eyes glowing with emotion. "And you're not the monster I feared," she replied. They both laughed, even if just for a moment. Even if the danger wasn't over, their bond wasn't built on words, but on action, rescue, on trust, on loyalty earned through fire. Eric passed out from blood loss, but Sierra didn't panic. She flew the ship to an old outlaw station where medical tech was still traded in secret. With her translator chip and alien appearance, she pretended to be a bounty scout and traded scrap for supplies. She carried Eric into a hidden medbay and used stolen medical tech to stabilize him. For 3 days, she sat beside him, watching over him like he had once watched over her. When he finally opened his eyes, she said, "You said I wasn't a slave anymore. Now you're not a soldier anymore." Eric laughed and replied, "Then what are we?" Sierra thought about it, then answered, "We're something better, we're free." After Eric recovered, they repaired the ship together, naming it HFY. They rewired the signal codes, erased all registered IDs, and vanished from every bounty system, but they didn't hide forever. They made a new mission, one that was dangerous, illegal, and righteous. They started tracking slaver networks, freeing captives, and exposing black market rings. Sierra's hacking skills and Eric's experience became the perfect team. People across the stars began whispering stories of a silver-skinned girl and a tired human who saved the forgotten. They left messages behind in ruined auctions. "You were never slaves, you were stolen." On one moon, they saved 10 prisoners. On another, 100. Sometimes they were hunted, sometimes they barely escaped. But every time they succeeded, the fire in their hearts grew stronger. Sierra once feared her life was over. Now she had given new life to others. One night, while drifting peacefully in a nebula, Eric handed her a small silver badge. "This was my daughter's," he said. "I think she would have liked you." Sierra held the badge tightly and whispered, "Then I'll make her proud." Their story didn't end with escape, it began there. The girl who was once afraid of pain now walked through danger with courage. The man who lost everything now found hope in saving others, and as stars lit up around them, the galaxy would remember their names, not as master and slave, not as human and alien, but as two broken souls who found strength in each other and changed the stars forever.